Besides sending the police, you might want to send an ambulance or a hearse.
Hello, Billy Ho here, and another preview show for the PGA Championship this week in Rochester, New York, Oak Hill Country Club. I'm joined by David, the DFS chef, and we're gonna talk over some. We're gonna go over like ownership, maybe some pivots, some value plays. Are you sticking with the chalk in certain ranges, and just kind of get a general idea on maybe some lineup strategy, balanced or going up top. Are you gonna pivot to Rory over Rom or things of that nature? So I'll introduce my man David. How you doing today, David?
I'm doing good, really looking forward to our second major of the year, and hopefully everyone can make some good money this week.
Yeah, sounds good. And while we're on the subject, I just wanted to let all the viewers know I am from Louisville, Kentucky, and as we know, next year's PGA Championship is at Valhalla Country Club in my hometown. It's not. It's on the other side of town a little bit. It's not really a far drive. I went to the PGA Championship all the way back in '96 when we first got it. And then I went and when Tiger won it, and then I was there actually in 2013 when Rory won it. I went a couple of times that year. I had one on my birthday, and it was just god awful shitty. It was raining and wet and nasty. And that golf course is very similar in nature to Augusta, as up and down hills. It's a long course to walk. So anyway, just real quick before we get started, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all the new subs. Smash the like, notification bells, and leave some comments. Let me know where you're at. Are you going to eat some chalk this week, or who's your major pivots? Let's say 9K and up. Who do you think is a good pivot? Are you going to roll the dice on Jordan Spieth with the wrist injury, or what? So, all right, let's get started. All right. Now we got up David's stat model. And let's see. I think I must have been looking at it before we started because it's not at the top, but we'll get it up there if I can get this roller to work. And real quick, weather wise, and we're that's going to be a big topic of discussion. It's going to be dicey Friday. That's what I can say, and it's going to be pretty daggone cold Thursday morning. I mean, we're talking like sub 40 degrees, feeling like it's 36. So there could be frost, and it's going to be wet. I think it's really going to be hard to get the ball out there Thursday AM. So just keep that in mind. Friday is going to be looks like a pretty steady wind all day. So it's kind of evens it out. Both days look pretty even wind wise. Actually, the Thursday the wind looks just fine, and then Friday, but the Friday AM guys are going to get a little bit of a break because it's going to be in the 50s when they tee off in the morning, and these are like 7 o'clock, 7:05 first tee. So that's going to be damn cold for these guys. But what we're going to do now is we are going to start up top. I just wanted to get a quick glance at David's model, see where he's got some guys ranked, and looking good with Rom 1, 2, Xander 5. I like how that's setting up. And we're going to jump over to the cheat sheet over here for Rick Run Good and look at some ownership. And what we want to decide is say from 8K and up, and I'm going to start with David, uh, just in this general range from let's see, Tom Kim. We'll start Fleetwood at 12%, but uh, this range really isn't that big of a deal. 12% is just fine to play, but then you got Fitz and Hatton are a little bit a hair on because you got Decky at 8, so you got some pivots around you. So and then up here, obviously, we got a couple of in the red. So we'll just start off with David. You can go start up top and give us an idea on where you're going to start your lineup builds.
Yeah, I mean, this week it's probably eating the chalk, and it's you know planting your flag. And like Tambo said, you can always, if you're playing a good amount of lineups, you can kind of split between
Mm-hmm.
Rahm and Scheffler if those are your two guys, and most likely those are going to be the two guys that I'm at of the up at this 10K plus range, and it's most likely I play a good amount of lineups, so it's probably going to be kind of like flipping a coin back and forth between Rahm and Scheffler for me.
Yeah.
There's really not much of a huge ownership, break between Rory, Scheffler, and Rahm. I mean,
No, that's not bad. No.
5%, 6%. It's not huge. Morikawa is the one that would give you almost three times the ownership pivot off of like Rahm or Scheffler. But are you willing to go there? It's like Morikawa. We know Morikawa is a great ball striker. Um, he is very accurate off the tee, but these fairways are extremely narrow. So a lot of guys, as accurate as they are, a lot of guys still might be missing fairways, possibly. Um, the rough looks pretty thick this week.
Mm-hmm.
Not really like excessively long, but just thick. So I know Rick was mentioning guys with club head speed, to get out of that thickness of the rough, because you're going to find a good amount of guys in the rough this week. Um, Morikawa does not have the club head speed. I mean, we know that his around the green and putting game is not great, but when you're talking almost three times the ownership percentage pivot, um, I mean, his best putting surface is bent.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you willing to take that chance on a guy that could potentially give you a lot of leverage? And does he have the chops to win? Of course. I mean, any of these guys up here have the chops to win. It's just, can he put it all together this week? For me at 10-3, I'm not going to take that chance. I'd rather take my chances on pivots down low and stick to my guys up top. So
Well,
it's
I
something
tell you
you got to
what,
look at
Dave.
there.
One thing I would want to mention, just like briefly up top here, like you said, the 5% difference, Rory to Scotty. I would just jump down. I would just jump down the $200 and hit Brooks, because
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Brooks is back. So I sort of made some notes. I feel like he's closer to his 2017-18 form than he was when he was limping all over the golf course. And that's when he won back-to-back U.S. Opens, back-to-back PGA championships, one of them at Bethpage in New York. So I kind of, now Brooks is in the AM crew, but Brooks himself, if everybody doesn't remember, Brooks out of school went overseas and played on the Challenge Tour. He didn't play Corn Ferry Birdie Fest. He went over there and played in the rain and the shit and made his bones on the Challenge Tour in Europe before coming to the PGA. So he's no stranger to rough type of weather. And I think he's got, you talk about the chops. I think he does have the chops. He might be a little suspect around the green, but everybody's going to struggle around the green a little bit. But I feel like the putter, I feel like par four scoring, he gets it out there, so he's plenty. He's every bit as long as Cantlay Xander, or maybe not quite as long as Rory, but he's probably long as Rahm. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and I left that for you because I knew you were going to go to Brooks. So I mean,
Nice.
I definitely, and yeah, I would much rather go to Brooks than I would Morikawa. I mean, granted, again, almost 5% higher in ownership between Brooks and Colin, but yeah, I would definitely prefer Brooks. I mean, he's not called the major hunter, the major killer,
Right.
for nothing. So I would definitely take the $200 savings and play Brooks. If you want to stay away from the Rahm and Scheffler ownership, and then you know everyone in cash in the industry seems to be starting their builds, with Xander, and then
Yes.
and then go into like two of the 9K guys. I know that I'm pretty sure Rick and even I think Tambo was mentioning that they're looking at going like Xander Finau to start most of their lineups, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm in complete agreement, especially if you're going to play cash. It is a huge savings versus the two top guys in Rahm and Scheffler. You mentioned Spieth. Are you willing to take the chance? I mean, a 5% Spieth is a huge leverage, but the wrist is definitely a huge question mark. And is it going to be able to withstand, uh, especially if he winds up in the rough? Because we know Spieth can be very erratic and go wayward and whatnot. So if he winds up in the rough and he has to, really chunk it out of there, is the risk going to hold up, this week if he has to chunk it out of that thick rough? I don't know if I'm willing to take that chance. For me, I mean, and a lot of the ownership in this 9K range is pretty kind of bunched up. The one guy that I'm looking at to possibly gain some leverage in the 9K range would be Cam Smith. Um, you know, he is the next guy with the lead, with the lowest ownership in the 9K range. Um, you know, obviously we know Cam Young is a young bomber. I mean, he can send it out there as far as anyone. He's right there with Rory when you look at Rick's, cheat sheet. Um, the last couple of tournaments we've looked at, he seems to be regressing a little bit, especially around the green and with the putter seems to be really taking a little bit of a hit. So Cam Smith, obviously not as long, but we know what his game is. He is the around the green putting kind of specialist, and we know Australia uses a lot of bent grass, so he should be feeling right at home this
Oh
week.
yeah.
And I do think, and we know that the guy can win majors. We've seen that, and for me, I think that would be where I go. He is obviously lacking off the tee, but he's going to make up for it with that short game specialty. He's kind of a higher priced version of Patrick Reed, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking about on my notes. I did have something on Cam Smith. I agree with you on struggles off the tee. He's probably long enough lengthwise, but he's been really erratic. And self-admittedly, just since he won the Open Championship last year and then went to live, made all that money, he's really just. He's slacker. For lack of a better term, he's just slacking in his game a little bit. And I think the Masters. This is my own narrative, but the Masters should have been a wake-up call for him, and maybe he learned his lesson. So I'm thinking maybe he refocused on himself. He's had some better results on the live tour since. Yeah, if he's hitting the driver, straight, because he can sometimes, like they call it army golf, left, right, left, right. He's just all over the place. But he's elite with the irons, and he's a wizard around the greens and who else would you want like trying to get up and down to make a par with an 8 to 10 foot putt. He's automatic in that range. But like you said, eating the chalk, I Xander and Cantlay are two that I am eating chalk on, and I'm definitely having Finau. So really, the Jordan Spieth fade would be just due to I am on Xander, on Cantlay, on Finau, on JT. Uh, and then you start getting into Cam Smith. Like you said, if you're playing enough lineups, you can spread this around a little bit. Cam Young will be sacrificed. Victor's going to be sacrificed because I like Sungjae M. Sungjae M is just looking like he's about in the best form of his career, honestly, even though he's not winning. Uh,
Well, he did just win last week. Granted,
Well, actually, yes, he
it was
did.
in
He
Korea.
got up and down. He won. Yes, he did. You're 100% correct. He did. He got the win, so it might be some mojo. And we know he got hemmed up. He got hemmed up last year, uh, traveling after he was over in Korea playing golf, and he couldn't play in the PGA Championship. But he's got the pedigree for this. He's a lead around the green putting, and he's long enough. He's not, but he's more accurate than the rest of the guys. He gains a ton off the tee. I mean, you can see the green across the board there, and then another guy is Jason Day, who just won last week. Uh, he's no stranger to backing up a win with a top 10 or a top 5. So if that win last week keeps people off of him, I'm all about it. And then if you want to get down into the 8 down here, I'll run off a few, and then you can jump in, Dave. The Hatton and Fitzpatrick is those are going to be some tough calls for me. Hatton is just absolutely on fire. Fitzpatrick seems like he's past the neck injury. So obviously the win, at RB at Heritage and everything. So this is kind of his jam. He's added the length and he's got the elite around the green game. I'll save a few guys up in this range for you. But as far as pivoting, I'm not going to pivot to anybody below. The only one pivot is probably that 4% Shane Lowry, which I think this is kind of a Shane Lowry type of course because he's plenty long off the tee. He's got a good short game. He just sometimes doesn't make enough putts. But I think maybe the switch to bent, I think I had that in my notes actually. The move to bent a plus. So what do you think in this little short range?
Yeah, and I'm with you, and you're kind of taking the Kenny Kim approach because I know in the Fantasy Golf Degenerate podcast, Kenny mentioned Lowry this week as his possible, secret weapon and pivot in that 8K range this week, and he was someone I was looking at, and I'm on the fence on him right now. It definitely seems like it could be a great fit for him, especially looking at the weekend forecast. It definitely kind of more suits his mold for that weekend forecast that they're looking at as of right now. I like Hideki as the pivot in the 8K range this week.
Save that one for you.
Yeah, he seems to be also past the injury as well. He's mostly positive across the board. You can see on Rick's cheat sheet there, he is slightly negative with the putter. However, we are on his best putting surface being bent this week.
Yes.
So
Fast
someone
bent.
someone I'm looking at as a good pivot, especially in GPPs. You're saying half the ownership versus the Hatton and Fitzpatrick, basically. So that's the guy I'm looking at as the pivot in the 8K range for me to try and gain some leverage. As well as Fleetwood coming in at 12%. It's not half the ownership, but it's close, and
Not bad.
that would be going to like Tom Kim or Sahith Tagala. Tagala is definitely the wild card. I mean, he seems to really thrive and step up, especially in these bigger,
Yeah.
these bigger fields, these top-notch fields. I mean, we saw that at the Masters. I mean, a 9th place finish, and I believe I'm almost positive that was his very first Masters appearance, and he comes in 9th. So he is not afraid of these big boy events. So he's someone I'm definitely looking at as possible leverage off of Fleetwood this week. So that's where I'm at with the 8K range, and we can dip down into the lower 7K and sub 7K next, and you can take it from there, sir.
Sure. Well, when we get into the 7K range, obviously, are you going to play Wyndham Clark or not? It seems to be the order of the day. I mean, in all intents and purposes, how can you not? The dude is just hammers it off the tee. He's one of the best putters in the field. His iron game is the only thing he was honestly lacking, and he's probably in the top, at least in the top 5 over the last 24 to 36 rounds. You can see his results, the win, the third, and even the top 10 back here a little bit. So I think what I would do here is probably not be putting him with have him being your third guy in with Xander and Cantlay, or, like a Rahm, Xander, Clark, then your ownership's getting a little bit up there. Ricky's ownership is a hair bit high for my taste. 15% when you got guys like Patrick Reed next to him, and Keegan. So yeah, I would probably lean Keegan, or even though Ricky's been playing really, really well lately. And he does have all the tools necessary. And I didn't look at his bent stats, but I feel like he's a good bent putter. And the putter's been coming around a little bit for him. So I kind of like that. And then there's guys people forgot about. It's a couple of these Euro dudes. Paul Casey is a WD. He's out, by the way. So that was one guy that I was really like on the fence with. Like, this would be an awesome Paul Casey golf course, the way he used to play before he hurt his back a year ago. But he's out, so that saves that trouble. And people are on Russell Henley. I guess that Masters, he ain't sneaking up on anybody. Um, so because he was a guy I had kind of my eye on too, just as if you were going to pivot off of the bomber narrative and go with the accuracy and iron approach game guy. He would have been the fit for that. But then you got guys like Højgaard that can rip it out there. Montgomery, who's still struggling. I probably wouldn't go his route. Gary Woodland is a guy that I love this week. Uh, just because he's just been striking it so well, and he's super long off the tee and his iron game. You just have to pray that he doesn't kill you. That's going to be his downfall, is if he can't get up and down when he misses the green. So with that in mind, I'll probably be a little bit more tentative with that. But in this rank, I mean, everybody's low owned, so it's where you at with Wyndham Clark? You all in, or you just partial?
Yeah, I mean, and again, when we're talking pivots, we're talking strictly GPP leverage here. In cash, you're going to play these, chalky percentages in cash. You're going to ride it. But yeah, Clark's just taken his game to another level this year. He's someone that I will definitely be riding with. Like you mentioned, very long off the tee, very good putter, and he just seems to have found it with the long irons and his approach play this year versus previous years. So I got to eat the chalk. I mean, in GPPs, if you're going to try and move away from the Clark and Fowler percentages, like you mentioned, Patrick Reed again. Reed not long off the tee, but we saw it at the Masters. I mean, Augusta's a long course as well, and he's, like I mentioned earlier, he's the lower priced Cam Smith. So I mean, we know he's got an elite game around the green, great putter. So I'm good with going Patrick Reed and GPPs. You mentioned Keegan, Justin Rose. When we talk majors, is right there. Very low percentages this week, and that's because I think a lot of the industry must feel he's overpriced. But I also know several guys in the industry have mentioned Taylor Moore's name this week. Obviously,
I like him.
Yeah, he's got the length. The around the green game is the only thing that's somewhat suspect. He's a very good putter. So, I mean, I don't mind going to a very low owned Taylor Moore for some, ownership pivots. Joaquin Niemann, is coming in, half the ownership of Ricky Fowler. And we know Joaquin Niemann can definitely send it out there.
Oh, yeah.
He's won at long courses, Riviera, he won there. So we know that Joaquin Niemann can do it, so I don't mind going to some Joaquin Niemann this week for some GPP leverage. And then when we dip down, like you mentioned, Woodland, Siwoo, their ownership is up there. I don't know. I mean, the guy is definitely not going to contend, but we know Bent's his most popular putting surface, and I've heard his name mentioned a couple times. He's coming in very low. Emiliano Grillo is kind of someone I'm possibly looking at, but when we say 7,300 for Emiliano Grillo, and then you can get the caliber of Siwoo and Gary Woodland for less, it makes it hard to see Grillo as a pivot there. So if I'm going to pivot, I'm probably pivoting to someone lower in price, which would lead me to like a Chris Kirk or maybe a Seamus Power even, even though it's a long course and Seamus is not a long hitter, Seamus seems to do good at longer courses for some reason. So, at a 5% ownership versus like a 12% Siwoo or a 9% Woodland, I might take a chance on a Seamus Power or a Chris Kirk. And then obviously Mito is kind of right there with Woodland. So, but Mito is a huge bomber. So that, I mean, that's what you're looking at is the is that 1% difference worth going from Woodland to Mito? I don't know, especially with the way Woodland's been striking the ball lately. But 4% ownership leverage from Siwoo to Mito to me might be worth it.
All right. All right. Well, we're going to polish off the show with maybe some sub 6K guys. And right off the top, I mean, you can look at guys like Kuchar, but I'm not really, I don't want to go with the obvious ones. I want to try to find, Hoagie is a wild card, I guess. But if you get down here, I think maybe some of these Euro guys, like I remember that Scott Stewie on Twitter was asking about Yannick Paul, and I was like, well, you got Adrian Moronk right underneath him, 100 cheaper. I thought Yannick Paul's price was outrageous. I mean, he was like the outlaw tour guy back in the day and whatnot. And he's playing really well. He's I like his game, but Moronk's just proven, and he's a bomber, and he's got around the green chops, and he would be just a much better play in my opinion. So you can see he's got a little bit of ownership too. 5% in a major under 7K is getting ownership like KH Lee is. Another guy I put in the pool is Danny Willett, just off of if it does turn into a around the green struggle fest. He's the guy I want in my corner. But it seems like every time I play him, he's just a disaster. He comes out on Thursday and shoots like an 80. So I'm just hoping that doesn't happen. But the guy right here, Patrick Rogers, I don't know why I have not heard his name mentioned at all this week. Long off the tee. I guess maybe just because he had some struggles for a while, but he's put his game together. I mean, the last 3 out of 4 events, he's been really solid. And he just seems like he'd be a decent course fit here. He's around the green and putting. So plenty long off the tee. He might struggle on approach, but I think everybody will. Still, I'm going to go back to Jaeger bombs, and he's legit bombing it now. I mean, he used to be a short knocker. Now I watched a little bit of that Byron Nelson last week, and he was just leaning back with all he had and just cranking them out there. And he was hot fire on Sunday. So I'm thinking he might be able to parlay it over to do some damage. Svensson was another one I liked just because of the iron game. And then of course there's more obvious ones like Varner Buckley. And then you get down here, the other Højgaard brother, but give me one or two guys down here, David, and we'll cut it off.
Yeah. The guys that you just mentioned, obviously, Moronk is someone that I'm definitely looking at. He's got the length. Jaeger, Brendan Steele is someone that I'm possibly looking at who's at now showing just about 2%. He's got length off the tee. We know that when we talk ball striking, he was one of the best on tour. When ball striking, and since he's made the move over to Live, he's had some pretty good results on the Live tour as well. So for the price that he's at, I'm probably willing to take some possible leverage off of like the higher chalk guys who are HV3, Kuchar, Moronk. So that's someone I'm possibly looking at. And then one other guy that I'm probably going to look at, his ownership is somewhat up there for sub 7K, but he's checking several boxes, and that's Bjorn Olesen.
Yeah,
that's another guy that I'm possibly looking at as some GPP leverage under 7K.
All right, very good, my man. You mentioned just the dudes that I put in my player pool was Olesen and Steele and a lot of those guys. So we're definitely on the same wavelength. So hopefully we can get it done. So thanks again for joining me, Dave. I appreciate you as always. Thanks everybody for watching. And until next time, we will see you soon.